What's up, everybody? J Heat Sports Media coming at y'all again with that fire as always. Spitting the hot topics and getting the sports conversation started. Y'all know what I'm talking about: football, basketball, and boxing. So there's been a recent debate going on, the NBA GOAT debate, which seems to rage on, especially these days, because there's a legitimate person in the discussion that hasn't been anyone for the competition or the mantle of Michael Jordan, who many people in my generation and younger feel like is the greatest. His competition, everybody knows, is LeBron James. A lot of people feel like LeBron James has a legitimate argument as the greatest of all time. And in my lifetime, for people my age and younger, I have not seen as many people come to the defense of a player like LeBron James ever. Michael Jordan was kind of undisputed. Again, I say my generation and younger because older people who have had enough time to see enough basketball than even myself would make the argument for some other people. And the reason this conversation has come up even more so in recent days is because Michael Jordan's agent recently made a comment that if, and this is Michael Jordan's agent back when he was playing for the Chicago Bulls, he made a comment that if Michael Jordan had skipped around to different teams and played with multiple all-stars like LeBron James, he'd have 15 championships instead of just 6. Kind of taking a slight at LeBron James, that LeBron James didn't win as many titles with the talent he had. And so he said he doesn't even think LeBron is a top 5 player of all time. I think he had him in his top 10. And to some people who even think Michael Jordan is the greatest feel like that was a slight that LeBron James, how can he not at least be in your top 5? Well, I'm here to tell you it's all a matter of opinion. And we got to start respecting other people's opinion in these GOAT debates, because truthfully, we'll never know. These people can't play each other, and they played in different eras. I will say, in my opinion, evolution takes hold where you have to consider the fact that guys have become more athletic. They're quicker, faster, stronger, more talented in some ways. The ability to dribble the ball, shoot the ball. And these things they've learned over time, like generation after generation, people learn from the previous generation. So that naturally they have the tools to prepare to get better, and just genetics. But that being said, it's hard to compare eras. So for me, in my personal opinion, I look at how guys dominated their era. If I were looking at a top 5 or top 10 players of all time, I'm going to look at generation from generation. Who has the right to say during their time they were the best of their era? For me, my best player of all time is Bill Russell. And the reason that's the case, I look at things like MVPs, all NBA teams, championships. All these things matter to me and how you dominated your era. Bill Russell had the right to say he was the greatest of his time. And he was a winner because of his play on the court. He gets slighted. Unlike Michael Jordan, they act like he wasn't playing with a guy in Scottie Pippen who was an MVP candidate, not just a second fiddle on the team. But Bill Russell, they act like he played with just all these Hall of Famers, and that's the only reason they were winning. Even though the Celtics didn't win before him, and it took 5 years after he left for them to win again. Bill Russell also, for those that don't know, was a winner his entire life. In high school, he won 2 state titles. That's the highest championship you can win in high school. He won 2 of them. In college, you could only play 3 years in varsity. He won 2 national titles in those 3 years. Then he was the greatest winner of all time in the pros. So he was always a winner. And I'm of the mindset he made guys better. And yeah, I didn't get to see Bill Russell personally all the time. I do my research. I listen to what people say and do my own research and watch game film. But even Wilt Chamberlain said he thinks that he wouldn't have been as successful with the Boston Celtics as Russell was. I think the difference in those championship years with Russell, those 11 titles, 2 of which he was player coach doing them, you take Russell off that team, they might win 2 or 3 maybe. But I think he's that significant of a piece. Now, another guy that has the right to say he was the best of his generation is Michael Jordan. I put Michael Jordan number 2. He was the best player on his team, won those 6 titles, had 5 MVPs like a Bill Russell, was a defensive player of the year, did it on both ends, no doubt about it. The reason I would put Mike at number 2 over, say, a guy like Jabbar, who has 6 titles too and 6 MVPs, was because Jabbar in the 70s didn't have the opportunity. He didn't win the titles that maybe he should have then to show how dominant he was. Other guys was eating during that time. It wasn't until he got Magic Johnson, who jumped into the league as a top 5 player and the best point guard in the league day one, that Jabbar started winning. And of the 5 titles he won with Magic, 3 of those, Magic was the best player. So it wasn't always Jabbar. I would take a guy like LeBron James, who was the best player of his era, over even a Jabbar, because throughout his career, no matter who he played with, he was the best player. And 8 straight titles, jumping from team to team, is harder than it looks. Just because you got talent don't mean you're going to win. You can look at a number of teams that put together talent and didn't even make the championship. LeBron was there like clockwork. You could count on it like the sunrise, and then LeBron James was going to be in the championship every year when he was at his height. And he was winning a lot of them. And yeah, Mike won more titles and was undefeated, but I never saw Mike play against a squad in the finals like the Spurs that were loaded with talent or the Warriors that were loaded with talent. Mike, if he got through the East, which was tough, the West was there to be had, in my opinion. Not that they were scrubs, but they weren't as good as some of the teams in the East that he had to go through. And so those are my top 4. If you haven't been keeping up, Mike was at 2. I would go LeBron number 4, LeBron 3, Jabbar 4. My 5 would be Shaquille O'Neal. Shaquille was the best in his generation. I know a lot of people like Kobe. Kobe wasn't even the best player on his team to me. And Shaq, the only thing that allowed Kobe to take over as the best player of that era was Shaq getting out of shape and old. When Shaq was dominant and at his best, no doubt he was the best player. If I had Kobe in his prime, Shaq in his prime, and I'm drafting a team, I'm picking Shaquille O'Neal. So I like him as number 5. And then it gets real scrambled from there. Kobe has an argument. Bird, Duncan, Hakeem Olajuwon, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant. There's a lot of guys out there. You can jumble them up in any order. But those top 5, to me, are the best of their generation. I think Jokic is going to have an opportunity to jump into that conversation as years go on if he keeps putting in work, especially if he wins a few more titles. But respect people's opinion is my main thing, because everybody got the right to one. All right, that's all the time I got. Y'all know what it is, and you know who you're looking for. J Heat Sports Media. Remember to like, subscribe, or get at me in the comments. Find me on YouTube, Instagram, X, and TikTok.